Velkommen alle sammen. Today we are looking at a little scene from Assassin's Creed Valhalla where we actually meet Thor. And so we all know Thor, he is the most famous god in all the Norse myths, but most of us don't know what he really represents and how deep Thor actually is. So as many of you know, I hope, our pagan ancestors didn't believe in a bunch of superhuman real beings that were just chilling out in a heavenly city like this. Every god and character in the Norse myths represents some different aspect of nature, the cosmos, or ourselves and our own spirituality. So I'm going to share a little story about Thor from the myths, and then I'll tell you what he really represents. So, once upon a time, the gods wanted to have a big party, and they told Thor to find a place to set it up. Thor says, alright, so he goes to Aegir, the sea god, or he's really the sea giant. And he says, alright, so you can have your damn party here, but you gotta bring me a big cauldron for the mead. So Thor says, okay, he'll bring the cauldron. So then the god Tyr, which was Thor's brother in some stories, or his stepbrother in other stories, but Tyr says that his mom's husband, or his father, has a big cauldron. Let's go get it from him. And that was Tyr's, like I said, Tyr's dad in some stories. In some stories it's just his stepdad or even his grandfather. But that was the giant called Hymir. So they went there, and Hymir says to Thor, come help me catch some fish and I'll let you borrow it. So they go out fishing for some big damn fish. This is Thor. This is a Thor and a giant, Hymir. So a very, very big fish they need. They're catching whales and all that stuff. And Thor takes one of Hymir's cows and cuts its head off and uses that as bait. And eventually, Thor ends up hooking the Midgard serpent, the massive serpent that circles the world, keeping all the oceans in place. Probably the second or maybe third most terrifying giant in all the Norse myths. And Thor hooks this thing and starts to pull it up, and the oceans are shifting, and there's waves all over the place, tsunamis and all of this. And Hymir starts getting terrified, and he says, no, Thor, put it back. I don't need any more fish. It's okay, put it back. But Thor doesn't want to put it back. The Midgard serpent is his rival and mortal enemy in all the myths throughout all of time, all the way until Ragnarök. So Hymir decides to cut Thor's line, so the Midgard serpent goes free. But before the serpent gets away, Thor takes his hammer and smashes it straight in the head, and it sinks back down into the ocean. So that's the story. Now, many of the gods and characters in the Norse myths have very, very simple functions and symbolize something very basic. It's pretty easy, most of them. The Midgard serpent is one example of these things. The Midgard serpent is generally agreed among the experts to represent the force that holds our dimensions in place. As long as the Midgard serpent is there, we cannot have access to the realm of the dead or other dimensions, or whatever you want to call it. Thor, however, is much more complicated about what he really represents. He has many, many functions, and the experts can't really agree what Thor actually represents. It could be many things. All we know is that he is an extremely ancient god going all the way back to Indo-European times, which is when the Indians and the Europeans were still the same people. We had the same language and religion. So we're going back 8,000 years at least.
Here is the battle you died to attain! For heavy and for Asgard!
Because we see parallels of Thor in Vedic mythology also, and also parallels of Thor in the European myths. He was Mercury in the Roman mythology, and either Zeus or Hercules in the Greek mythology. That's parallels there. But we do know that most of the time Thor represents thunder, possibly electricity. He also represents, he's the protector of mankind, and he ensures the balance in the world. He also has something to do with gravity, and some people say that he represents our life force, the life force of our humans and all things, not just humans, but all things, everything living. That's a Thor that represents that. And it is our life force that is in that constant struggle with mortality and breaking through that barrier to triumph over death and to gain access and control into other dimensions and the realm of the dead. And the Midgard serpent is what is protecting that. It's like a gate. It's a fence to that's protecting us in the world in this dimension from traveling into the realm of the dead or other dimensions. And Thor gets very close to doing this. He eventually kills the Midgard serpent at Ragnarök, the apocalypse, but he is also killed by the poison. So he's never able to conquer this force that blocks off the dimensions. So humans are never able to successfully conquer interdimensional travel and mortality. It's pretty deep, and Thor is very, very complicated. This is just an introduction. I'll be making many more videos, and I have a whole playlist on my other channel about all the gods and what they represent. So stay tuned for more. Yeah, that's about it for this video. Vi ses nästa gång.